It's Rylie.
It's Sloan.
It's Briar. Hang on to your broomsticks.
It's about to get eerie.
Today's episode could contain themes and elements uncomfortable to some listeners. Please check the episode description and remember to always take care of yourself.
So, diving right on into this episode, I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite scary movies series that honestly really got me into the horror genre, which is the Paranormal Activity series. So, if you're not familiar with the series of Paranormal Activity movies, there's 8 films in total, and the first 4 of them are titled Paranormal Activity 1 through 4. And then comes Paranormal Activity, the marked ones, Paranormal Activity, the Ghost Dimension, and Paranormal Activity, Next of Kin. But that's only 7. But there is a Japanese side sequel that was released the same year as the second one.
Okay, I think that's the only one I probably haven't seen.
Yeah, I've not seen that one, and I've not seen the 2 most recent ones. So
I've only seen, I think, 3 of the series, even though I want to watch the rest of them.
We actually just watched... We marathoned them not too long ago, and then we watched the new one fairly recently.
So, they actually are not chronologically in the right order. So, the proper order, if you want to watch them in terms of, like, when they occurred, would be the 3rd one, the 2nd one, the 1st one, the 4th one, and then I think the rest are in the right order. The marked ones, the Ghost Dimension, and the Next of Kin. So, I'm about to go into about the films, so if you've not seen these movies and you don't want spoilers, this is probably the point I'd stop listening and then come back after you watch the whole series. So I'm going to go into a little synopsis in general about the films, and then I'm going to go into each film individually. So the Paranormal Activity series is an American supernatural horror franchise that each movie is typically based around various families who became haunted by the demon Asmodeus, or Toby, of the Book of Tobit. And the demon stalks, terrifies, and ultimately murders several members of the family and other bystanders during the course of all the films. So, the series makes use of production camera setups like security cameras or recording devices or people recording to present the film as, like, found footage. Which we were saying that these films kind of, I think, brought it back to popularity.
Yeah, because I think the last one that was extremely popular was the Blair Witch Project.
Yeah, I would say that was probably the most, like, mainstream one. I know there's been a bunch of, like, little ones or, like, B-movies that do that style, because a lot of people like that, the lost footage. But I think Blair Witch Project was probably the other one that was as big as Paranormal Activity got.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely with you that Paranormal Activity brought that way of filming back into popularity.
So, now more specifically, I'm going to start talking about the first film. So, the first Paranormal Activity was released in 2007, centers around a young couple, Katie and Micah, who are played by their actors and actress have the same name. So Katie is Katie Featherston, and that's the actress, and then Micah Sloat. And they are haunted by a supernatural presence in their home, and they set up a camera to document what is haunting them. And the film utilizes the found footage conventions that were mirrored in all the later films of the series.
Well, I remember when it came out, because even the, like, previews on TV weren't really, like, previews of the movie. It was the reactions from audiences watching it.
Yeah, that's something to go into is, like, a lot of them, or I think I go into it, that a lot of people were kind of upset about the previews because they're like, this has nothing to do with the movie.
Yeah. But I think they did it so you didn't know. I think it was to make it seem like, so you watch it and you're like, wait, is this real? Is this happening? Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Well, it also brought in a depth of, I want to go see that. What's making the audience look so scared?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And all that.
I know I went and saw it in theater.
I don't think I did. I don't think I've seen any of them in theater, or whichever ones were released in theater.
I only saw the first one when it first came out, because it was like,
I think I watched it on, like, Netflix. when it came out on Netflix. But now I'm going to go into my favorite scenes within the movie. So within the first one, I have a couple favorite scenes, but my absolute favorite one is when Katie and Micah put the flower on the floor and like the doorway of their room, and you could see like the footprints being left. It's like chef's kiss.
That became, I don't know if that's always been like a ghost hunting type technique that people use, or if it just the movie brought it out and we're like, oh, it's like, or if it all happened at once. But like that added some realness to it because they really set that up to see if you can track stuff.
But a definite close second for my favorite scene would be, it's one of the scenes where they're like filming them while they sleep, and the sheets start moving around and uncover Katie's foot, and then all of a sudden she like jolts awake from a noise downstairs. And I like that one because it's like less of the crazy and more of just the general haunting things.
The whole movie with the timer when they're recording it just sets you up to be terrified. Mm-hmm. Because you're watching it, it's like speeding up and then it stops and you're like, something's gonna happen. Something's about to happen.
And I know personally, like, I have a problem seeing, like, stuff in the dark, so that I'm like, am I supposed to be seeing something? Is something going on back there?
And you don't know where to look, and you're, like, looking down the hall, you're like, is that where it's gonna be? You're like, no.
Where's it gonna be, under the bed?
Yeah, where's it coming from? Where's it gonna be?
So, do you guys have any favorite scenes?
I don't know if this counts as a favorite scene, but I know it always agitated me, because I did not like Micah, and he thought it was a big joke the whole entire time. And when they had the flippin' sidekick come in, he was like, do not interact with it. Micah's big brain decides, let's get a Ouija board.
Yeah.
And then...
Typical man.
And the whole time he's like, hey, spirit, what up?
Yeah. And then when stuff starts getting bad, and then the psychic comes back and he's like, nope, I'm out. Yeah. And leaves the house, and then Micah's like, oh, maybe this was serious. I'm like, yeah, that's why you don't mess with flipping Ouija boards.
Mm-hmm. I think favorite scene, as far as, I'm just going to go based on what scares me the most, are the footsteps, the running.
Yeah.
Like, where you hear it, and, like, audio-wise, it definitely sounds like something running at you, but there's nothing there, and you're, like, waiting for, you know, being a horror junkie, I'm always ready for those jump scares. Mm-hmm. I know they're coming, and they get me every time, so I'm, like, expecting it, and then you don't get it, and you're like, well, it, like, keeps you on the edge of your seat. You're like, what the heck's happening?
I had another one, and I think it, tell me if I'm wrong, because it's been a little while since I've seen it. Isn't there a scene in the closet when they're going up in the attic because they think something's in there, and it goes silent, and you're just waiting. I'm like, something's going to pop up, and then nothing. I'm like,
yeah, when they're going up and, like, pushing the thing, and I'm like, no, I don't want to watch it. I don't want to watch it.
But then nothing happens.
Yeah.
Now, I will also say, there's a scene in the first one that, like, gets on my nerves. And it's when goes outside after I guess has kind of been possessed or in trance, whatever, you know, you want to call what happens. And she's, like, sitting there, and he wakes her up, and she comes to, and she's like, I just want to sit here. I just want to sit here.
Yeah.
I'm like, stop! Yeah! Get up! Get inside in your booty shorts and tank top. We got neighbors. And she's just saying, I don't want to.
This is a family neighborhood.
I just want to sit here. You're gonna die in the house, and you're gonna die out of the house.
It don't matter.
At least don't make a spectacle of it. That's how I feel.
So now that we've talked about some of our favorite scenes from the movie, I want to go into some fun facts I found about the movie.
All right.
So the first fun fact I found is actually interesting, and it's that the director, Oren Peli, actually used his own house to shoot the movie in.
That's cool. It was really low budget.
Yeah. And that's like, the second fun fact is the actors, Katie and Micah, only got paid $500.
What?
But they were really struggling actors who hadn't been in anything yet, so they jumped at the chance to even, like, just have a paying acting job. And Third
they
fun
don't
fact.
even get to continue on in the series.
Yeah.
Well,
Katie does. Yeah.
Micah is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Why?
You're done.
Yeah. You're done. So the third fun fact is Micah Sloan actually did the camera work for the film, and he was a cameraman in college, and the director actually had to tell him to do a bad job. So it would seem more, so it would seem more realistic. So he was like, you gotta do some poor quality work, because you're too good.
Your character just got these cameras.
So, to the low budget, it only costed $15,000 to make the whole film. And it actually made $193 million.
Wow.
So, it's considered to be one of the movies with the highest return on income rate.
Yeah.
I mean, when you only spend $15,000 and you get...
Do you think they ever went back and did they ever pay him anymore? That would be like...
I mean, for Micah, that sucked, because you gotta think,
Here's
the
your
newer
$500
ones...
on this multi-million-dollar movie.
That you helped film.
Yeah, that you acted, you filmed, you did all this work. Here's $500. Go get you something pretty.
I was nearly going to ask, though, because I thought that it was on the list of highest amount of money that they made back or something.
I mean, and he filmed in his own house, so that was like nothing. So, very cheap to make in comparison to other stuff.
I wonder, so what's interesting about that is all the time you see stuff like the American Horror Story house. So that was like a real house, but the inside was not the same because they film in a studio, but they use that outside. But what's wild would be you could actually buy that house.
Yeah.
Talk about being freaky. Is like living in the house that Paranormal Activity was actually filmed in, so everything's going to look the same.
Yeah. Talking about that, though, I find it funny that the murder house that was used from the outside, it's actually in a lot of shows. Like, it's in the Halloween episode of Buffy.
Yeah. It's that iconic imagery.
Yeah.
But, well, that's another thing about the house. Now I'm on a tangent. Because you never really see the outside, do you? The backyard.
I think the
and
backyard,
when they go out,
and I
but
feel like there might be one scene of the front.
When she pulls in the very beginning. But I wonder if that's because, I mean, it's like his legit neighborhood, and it's like, well, I don't want people... I'm sure you can find it.
Oh, yeah.
Google it.
And is the pool in the first one or the second one?
I think it's in the second one.
Okay.
Because I was like, the pool's filmed a lot in one of them.
Yeah, I do think I think that's the second one.
Yeah. So, talking about the second one, we'll actually go into a little bit about the second film. So, Paranormal Activity 2 focuses on Christy and Daniel. Christy is Katie's sister. So, in the movie, there is an alleged burglary at their home, trashing their house, and leaving their infant son Hunter's bedroom untouched. So, everything's trashed except their son's bedroom. And the only thing that is actually stolen is a necklace that Katie gave to Christy. And they have a Latin American housekeeper who senses evil spirits and burns sage to get rid of it, and Daniel fires her for doing that.
Yeah, I always... that scene, I was like, typical man.
Yep.
It's a common theme.
And then Christy's over here like, no, this house is haunted.
That's another one in that whole flipping movie, because Hunter has a sister, right? They have like a 16-year-old daughter. And she's even noticing stuff. And she's like, Mom's getting hurt and has bruises. And the dad's like, she's fine.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Denial.
So...
Until you die.
Christy believes the house is haunted, and she talks to Katie about being tormented by a demon when they were children. Daniel still is dismissing all of this, even though there's literal footage of strange occurrences happening around the house. And Daniel's daughter, Allie, investigates and discovers that humans can make deals with demons for wealth or power by forfeiting the soul of their firstborn son. But if the deal is not fulfilled, the demon will stick to the family until another son is born. And Hunter was actually the first male to be born on Christie's side since the 1930s. And at the end of the film, Katie visits and explains that strange things have begun happening at her house. And on October 9th, which is a night after Micah is killed, a possessed and bloodstained Katie breaks into their house, kills Daniel and Christy, and takes Hunter with her. and Allie comes home from a school trip to find the corpses, and Katie and Hunter's whereabouts remain unknown.
So I couldn't remember if they were happening simultaneously or if it was like one after the other, because I remember Katie coming at the end.
Well,
so they are kind of overlapping at the same time.
Well, they were getting haunted, and finally when the dad realizes, oh, some stuff's happening, he brings back their housekeeper, doesn't it? And then they transfer the demon to Katie, and then that's when the first movie
Okay, yeah, there we go.
And then it goes back to where Katie comes and kills both her and the husband.
Yeah. So, this one for favorite scenes.
I would transfer a demon to you, straight up.
That's
Straight
hurtful.
up. No, just
Okay, girl.
kidding.
It's just going to jump back and forth.
That's true.
So, favorite scenes for this movie. My all-time favorite scene has got to be when Hunter's getting dragged up his crib, like, from the side, but it, like, the footage just keeps jumping to, like, different security cameras, and it's so good. I love that scene. But an honorable mention is when Christy just gets snatched from Hunter's room and dragged all the way to the basement, like, down those steps, and she's like, ah!
Yeah, that's freaky.
I feel so bad because it's a terrifying scene because she does get dragged through the entire house down in the basement and stays there all night until Daniel, is that the husband's name?
Yeah.
Comes and finds her.
Yeah.
But still, like, also looking back at it, like, at first time seeing it, it's terrifying, but then watching it and she's like, down the stairs. I'm like, I feel so bad. Because all I think of is, like, the little kids that, like, sliding down. They're like,
Yeah.
Every bump.
It's terrifying the first time you watch it. I think after your second or third, you're like, huh.
I think isn't there, I know there's a couple scenes where everything keeps busting open in the kitchen. Or we don't see it, stuff keeps getting open. I can't remember. But I love it when everything bust open all at once, and it's like, because it's like so quiet,
And she goes and just,
And
like,
she's
shuts one.
yeah, and it's like boom,
Yeah.
and she's like, ah,
Yeah.
I think also, like, at the end of it, when Katie comes back, you're like,
Oh, God. Oh,
no.
God.
And then you don't even expect it, because then she kills Daniel first and just goes clink with his neck, and then slams the mom into the camera in the nursery.
I just thought of like one of my favorite things. Yes, because that's fun. The pool, because we just talked about it. I love the pool cleaner that like, whoop,
Yes.
shooting up out of there. Because you're like watching, and you're like, oh god, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? It's like,
That's it.
but then the dad's like, see, it's nothing.
Again,
Like, yeah, your pool cleaner is why your cabinets keep busting open, why all this crazy stuff's happening. Delusional.
Men.
Yeah.
So, moving on to fun facts. Fun fact number 1 is the preview for this movie was actually banned in some theaters for scaring teenagers and small children viewing PG-13 films. Because they would, like, there was a bunch of jump scares in in the preview for this one, and it got banned.
Huh.
Because it was
Did it get
scary.
banned everywhere? Because I'm trying to think. I don't even remember seeing the preview.
I just said in some theaters, so I'm assuming some probably still showed it, or maybe just it got banned from all the PG-13 ones, but like rated R movies could still have the
Wimps.
yeah. Yeah. So, number 2 is apparently upon it coming out, it broke the record for biggest midnight gross of a rated R movie with $6.3 million, and the biggest opening for a horror movie of all time, earning a total of $41.5 million in its opening weekend.
Wow.
just imagine the feeling of accomplishment that you started a series from a $15,000 film.
Yeah.
That
Recording
you
it in your
filmed.
own home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's, just
And then it
imagine
turns
it. And then it becomes this whole big thing.
Now, is it the same director?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure. I think at some point it might switch, but I think...
Those two, because
Yeah.
I probably know where it changes, because the story starts completely
Yeah.
changing. I would say maybe the next one. I could see being the same one.
And then after that.
And then after that is where they kind of start. That's just me guessing based on story and plotline. They're all connected, but...
The third fun fact I have, which is my favorite one for this movie, is in Allie's room, there are 2 Ramones posters and 1 Misfits poster. And Daniel Ray is the name of the father in the film, who is named after a man who produced albums for both the Ramones and the Misfits.
That's cool.
So it was kind of like a little movie
Easter egg.
Easter egg. There we go. I couldn't think of the word.
That's why it took me a second, because I was thinking. I was like, what is that word?
So, going into film number 3. So, this movie takes place in 2006, and Katie delivers a box of old videotapes of young Katie and Christy with their mother, Julie, and her boyfriend, Dennis, to her pregnant sister, Christy, and her husband, Daniel.
Why is this not ringing a bell?
You know what?
Oh, I remember this one.
I don't remember it being that way.
Didn't it? Yeah, it opened up and she's bringing back the memories, and then it goes back to the 70s.
They start,
when they're kids.
Because they start showing.
I was like, wait a minute, I do not remember, because I remember this being the 70s-ish, and the dad at that time being like, look at this camera.
It's from 88, just so you know.
Okay, I knew.
I don't know. There was wood paneling, I'm pretty sure.
So, a year later, Christy and Daniel's house is broken into and the tapes are missing. And the tapes from 1988 make up the rest of the film.
Okay.
So, Dennis notices that Christy's imaginary friend, Toby, appeared, and strange things begin happening around the house. And after filming an earthquake in the couple's bedroom and noticing an invisible figure in the footage, Dennis's friend Randy recommends placing cameras throughout the house. A babysitter named Lisa watches the kids, but due to some terrifying incidents, she wants to leave immediately. The following night, Christy tells Toby that they're not friends anymore, and the demon harms Katie until Christy agrees to do what it asks. She asks her mother to take them to her grandmother, Lois's house, and Julie agrees after encountering frightening activity herself. Then some more action happens, and pretty much Julie's lifeless body gets thrown at Dennis, and Lois tells the girls to get ready, but before they go upstairs, Christy calls for Toby, and growling sounds are heard from the upstairs. So, my favorite scene from this movie is when the girls are up in their room, and Katie's blanket just gets yoinked off the bed and dragged across the floor, and Katie gets dragged across the floor, and Christy's kind of just like, and Katie's there screaming like, let me go! And then
like,
finally, finally Christy's like, gosh, Toby, stop it!
You big bully!
She just sounds so over it.
This is the one where they're like in the lofty area, right? That's her room.
Yeah.
And it's got that weird little cubby hole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't she get locked in there, and that's when Christy makes the deal with Toby?
I think
like
so.
Katie gets locked in it, and she's screaming, and Christy's finally like, I'll do what you want.
Yeah.
Is there a scene, I can't remember if I'm remembering it, but like, you see Katie's ponytail getting lifted up, and all of a sudden she gets yanked like 4 feet off the air?
I think that sounds familiar.
Because I know,
Yeah,
I'm
I'm honestly getting mixed up with like other movies. Partially like movies that make fun of it, like parody movies. Because there's stuff like that. But I do think there is something like that.
Yeah.
Well, because I know in The Conjuring, the first one of the daughters gets pulled around by her, but I'm just remembering like a ponytail and she gets yanked up in the air.
Yeah, and it's also, I've not watched them in, it's been a while since I've watched them.
I know one of my favorite things from this, though, is where it is back in ye olden days of the 80s, right? Is what you
88,
said? 80.
so almost the 90s.
But they set up the camera on the rotating fan, don't they? Don't they set it up so it's like
rotating?
Yeah, and I was like, look at them being innovative.
And then that's the scene too with isn't it with the sheet? Is that the ghost?
Yes,
scene?
and it's like standing up and then it goes whoosh and it falls. Because it like rotates from like, I don't know, like the hallway to the kitchen.
Yeah.
And that's another one of those cinematic moments where you're like, oh god.
Because it goes back a couple times.
Yeah. And you just know that something's going to get you.
And it's the ghost disappearing.
Yeah.
That's it.
So, now, it's fun fact time. As you can tell, I have an order for all these movies. I've kept everything in order. So, the first fun fact is, at the beginning, Julie takes a picture of young Katie standing there in the driveway before a group photo is being taken. And the photo actually appears in both Paranormal Activity, the first one, and the second one, as an indication that the demon has started haunting them.
Yeah, because that's the one they find in the attic.
Yeah.
Right.
I think so.
Isn't that how they transferred the demon over to Katie? From Christy to Katie, was that they had to use the picture of Katie when she was little?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that now.
But I thought that was cool. I like that. I like all those little Easter egg things you look for and connect.
In the first one, when she finds that, they're like, oh, I thought all my pictures were lost when the house burnt down. Not that one. They burned it when they gave it to you. When they sent that demon a knocking.
Well, they found it in the attic. Because she saw it at first when she's at the house, and then it was in the attic because they had to sneak it in there so the demon would attach itself to her. So,
the second fun fact is that in the trailer of this movie, there's actually a demonologist, but they don't actually appear in the movie, and they're not even given credit in the final film.
Weird.
So, this is the one that had a lot of scenes that were used in the trailer that weren't in the movie and caused a lot of fans to get upset.
Don't you mean play no tricks on us?
Yeah.
I can't stand that.
So that's a little different than the first one where you said it was like people reacting.
Yeah.
But this one, apparently, it was like used scenes that were not in the movie and like even had another, like a demonologist show up and then didn't even get credited or have any scene.
Because some of that stuff might be why you get pulled to it and you're like, ooh, I want to watch that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's one thing not showing the trailer at all and you just see audience reactions than to straight up lie about what a movie's about.
Yeah.
And then go in and you're like, what is this? This wasn't
right. You're like, where's my demonologist?
So, fun fact number 3, I just kind of thought it was cute. So, there's a scene where Christy's tooth is loose. And that's actually real. The actress who played young Christy showed up with a loose tooth and they were like, shoot it. Like, we'll work that into the film. So, I thought that was cool.
That is cool, too.
Oh, isn't it in the third one, too, where they play the Bloody Mary game?
Yeah.
In the bathroom? What happens in it that was freaky out? Was it...
The door got locked.
Yes, and they started freaking out.
Yeah. Or, because it was like... Didn't they get locked out from each other? Or are they all inside the bathroom? I can't remember.
I honestly have no idea.
I thought it was... They got locked in together and they started, like, hearing growling sounds.
I think
or something, and then they started freaking out because they couldn't turn on the light or open the door.
Yeah.
But wasn't it in the ending of the third one, the grandma was in a, like, coven of witches or something, and it ties into the family making a deal with the demon?
Yeah, and the dad gets his back snapped like a Slim Jim.
Sounds like some Rice Krispies. So, moving on to the fourth one, Paranormal Activity 4, it's really focused on a different family, and the main character being Alex Nelson, the teenage daughter, and she records footage with a laptop webcam before she and her boyfriend Ben set up cameras all around the house after many strange occurrences, which escalates into several cars parked outside a neighbor's house, and objects such as chandeliers, kitchen knives, the family car, and garage doors becoming sentient. So, the neighbor has a son, Robbie, who stays at the Nelson's home while his mother is hospitalized. Wyatt, who is Alex's little brother, tells Alex about Robbie's imaginary friend, Toby, if you couldn't have guessed. Alex finds Robbie in a closet, saying he doesn't like you watching us. Wyatt also tells Alex and Ben about meeting him, revealing a green symbol on his back identical to an ancient Hittite symbol, one that would prepare a victim for demonic possession. It is then revealed that Robbie's mother is actually Katie from the previous movies, and Wyatt is told by her that he and Robbie were adopted and that his other family needs him back. So that's the basic background of that movie.
I only saw this one once and I can barely remember, but isn't one of the boys Hunter?
Yeah. The one that is Katie's son, it's Hunter because she...
Okay, that's what I thought. I remembered that was like the twist.
Now, I feel like this might be the one that has the pool. Is this the one with the pool? when weird stuff starts happening and the pool filter comes out?
No, that is the second one.
Okay. Because I know this one, I think this one has a big pool thing, right? Because the dad is, like, thinks the daughter is, like, acting out.
I'm not sure. I
might be making that up. I don't know. It's another horror movie.
Probably. We've seen a bunch. So, but my favorite scene, I have quite a few favorite scenes from this one, but my favorite one is the garage scene where Alex gets trapped in the garage because all the doors lock, and then the car turns on. And it's my favorite because she was actually smart about it, and she just got in the car and, like, backed out the garage door.
But honestly, thinking about that in scenes where somebody's trapped in a car and the car is running, besides, like, if she was locked out of the car and it was running, I'd get it. But if you're in the car and the ignition is on, you can back that sucker up and do what she did and be out of there.
Yeah.
Well, that's, like, because she wasn't even in the car to begin with.
Yeah.
She was just in the garage, and then she was like, big brain. I'm
Get in the car.
Yeah, I'm going to get in this car. But another one of my favorite scenes is when they have the I think it's an Xbox, the Kinect dots.
Yes.
And you can actually see the figure. And I like that one. Because
they do that with Ghost
yeah,
Hunting.
Yeah. That's why it's one of my favorites, because it brings another part of the realism into it.
Well, I think after that came out, people started noticing weird stuff with their Xboxes or anything that could see things, especially Snapchat filters. Mm-hmm. You'll see a face in the background, and you're like, I'm done.
Yeah. When we went ghost hunting, they used to, I don't know if we got to see them use it, but they said they sometimes bring one of those.
That would have been cool.
Grid. Did we see them use a grid?
I don't think so.
I think they did talk about it, though.
And then on the ghost shows, they do the one that'll show the stick figures. Where the moving.
I like the stick figure ones, because sometimes it's hard to, like,
you don't see it, so then it picks it up, and you're like, oh. They're like, look, it's waving, or it's standing on your lap. It's standing on your lap.
So.
Josh Baggins.
Josh Baggins, yes.
Just kidding, it's Zach.
So, now into the fun facts of this movie. And the first one's, it's kind of a fun fact, but then it's kind of sad. So, the parents in the film, actors Stephen Dunham and Alexandria Lee, they were actually married in real life. But the sad part is, shortly before the film was released, Stephen Dunham passed away from a heart attack.
Oh.
So he didn't get to see the release of the movie.
Was it related to the movie?
I don't know. So the second fun fact is Brady Allen's character, Robbie, was actually named after Robbie Mannheim, who was a child in 1959 who was allegedly a victim of an evil possession and had to have an exorcism to save his life.
I like little hidden jewels.
So, third fun fact is Paranormal Activity 4 is most likely the most popular film in the franchise, with over millions of advertisements and souvenirs being released with the association of the film. So, I put most likely popular because I don't know. When I was looking at my sources, I didn't know if this was before or after the newer ones had came out. So, out of the first four, it was the most popular in souvenirs.
And I remember, too, because this came out, I think it came out shortly around those, like, what is it? The Just Friended, and there's another one.
The unfriended ones?
Yeah. And there was another one, like a friend request,
one.
something. Yeah, and there were several movies that came out with that laptop. And I remember it advertising with the girl on her computer.
Yeah.
Add that modern twist to it.
Unfriended, this is off topic, but Unfriended was actually pretty creepy.
Yeah,
I like about it.
I liked that movie. So, on to film number 5, The Marked Ones. So, this film is around an 18-year-old Jesse who lives with his father Caesar and sister Yvette and grandmother Irma. In the apartment below lives a mysterious woman named Anna Sanchez, who is believed to be a witch. Anna is found and murdered. Jesse and his best friend Hector spot their classmate Oscar Lopez running from the scene. The two investigate the apartment where they find black magic items, VHS tapes, and a journal of spells that can open doorways to unholy places. After Jesse and Hector and their friend Marisol try out a ritual and paranormal occurrences take place in Jesse's apartment, the trio communicate with an unknown entity through a game. Then Jesse finds a mysterious bite mark on his arm and discovers he has superhuman abilities, such as enhanced strength and levitation. So I'm like, my brain automatically goes to like Demon Spider-Man.
Yeah. Well,
Put that thing back where it came from.
For one, you don't open it, and you don't read it, and you don't perform rituals, okay?
Yeah, no.
That's a given.
So after all
So they
that...
had it coming.
It's like flipping Evil Dead, the one dude who...
Shut it.
It says it's wrapped in barbed wire, wrapped in a plastic bag, looks like it's made out of human skin, and says, "Do not read aloud." And what are you going to do? I'm going to read this out aloud.
No.
You leave it.
So, after all that, the group discovers a trapdoor in Anna's apartment, where they find a witch altar and photos of Jesse, his pregnant mother, Anna, Oscar, and Lois. Jesse is lured to the trapdoor one night and encounters the younger version of Katie and Christy, both with black eyes, before getting attacked by an unknown force. So then Jesse goes crazy, and Hector gets pushed through a door that leads him back in time to the household of Katie and Micah. Hector sees Katie going to the kitchen. After unsuccessfully attempting to get her attention, Katie turns around to see Hector and screams for Micah, who assumes Hector is an intruder and tackles him, but then Katie violently stabs Micah to death with a kitchen knife, which is how the first film ends. And then Jesse appears and attacks Hector, causing him to drop his camera and kills him. And then after a moment, a midwife witch picks up the camera and turns it off.
Which I actually remember really liking this one because you don't see, in the first one, you don't see when she screams for Micah.
Yeah.
You just hear when she screams for Micah. So I like that it filled in that blank.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure in the first one, you hear her scream, he runs, and then next thing you know, well, there's the two endings. The one where he's like thrown at the camera, and then the one, I think, where she just walks in.
Yeah.
And stares. But either way, you know he's dead. But you don't see it, and then that fills in the gap.
Yeah.
So I like how it tied back that way.
But my favorite scene, without a doubt, in this whole movie is when Jesse and Hector are like getting jumped at this gas station, and Jesse just sends two of the guys flying, and I just think it's so funny. It makes me giggle every time. I know my favorite scene should probably be like one of the scary ones or like one of the creepy ones. No, I just like that. And then they just run. He sends them flying, and then they're just like, we gotta go.
I forgot how much I like this one.
So I know Sloan's not seen this one, but do you have a favorite scene?
I don't know if I have a favorite scene, except I do remember loving it the time when he goes back.
Yeah.
I thought that was really awesome because before that, it doesn't really tie in. You know, it's going to tie in a little bit, but that really tied it in to the other ones.
Yeah.
But gave it its own story. It wasn't just a repeat. It wasn't just the same story.
Yeah, it gave it more dimension.
Yeah.
So, on to the fun facts. Fun fact number 1. This is actually the only Paranormal Activity not to be released in October, because they didn't wrap up filming until late July, so it had to be pushed to come out in January. So I thought that was interesting. I'm like, you messed up the flow.
I know, October is Halloween.
Prime time. I never realized they all came out in October.
Me either. I didn't know that.
So, fun fact 2 is kind of timeline of the story. So, in the timeline of how the movies would actually take place, this one occurs 6 years after the events of the first Paranormal Activity, but immediately after the events of the fourth one.
So that explains why the little boy is so much older. That's the time, because
Time has passed. A few
yeah,
years have passed.
because when Katie takes him,
He's
a baby.
Yeah.
And then I can't remember how old he is. He's a toddler. I don't know. Crotch goblin age.
Isn't he like 4 or 5, maybe?
Probably. Something like that.
In the fourth one?
Or no,
Yeah.
is he 5 or 6?
He's older.
Or 7.
8. I don't know. Anyway, it explains the
Younger
gap
than
from
10.
when he was a baby.
Younger than 10,
So when-
older than 10 months.
Yeah.
So,
Somewhere in
he's
that
older
gap.
than a baby. So, fun fact number 3, which is I like the best is when they're in Anna's apartment after she dies, there's a shot of Jesse standing in front of a mirror, and you can see that his reflection actually doesn't match up to what he's doing. So I don't know if that was necessarily just, like, a mess-up, or if it's supposed to be representatory of, like, her apartment having all that witch energy.
Doorways.
Yeah, all the doorways.
Well, because they say mirrors are doorways to parallel universes.
Yeah. So that's why I like that one, because either way, I like movie mess-ups that you catch, and I like when there's the little Easter eggs of, like, just noticing little details like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've actually not seen the last two in the series, so I'm not going to go over them like the other ones, but I definitely will be watching them soon. And I also didn't go into the sidequel, Tokyo Night, because I've not seen it either, and I don't technically think it follows main storyline, because it does take place in Tokyo. Mm-hmm. So I don't necessarily know how they line it up to main storyline. But my favorite movie out of the series, even though the first one is really what got me into horror movies and scary movies and paranormal movies, all sorts of those, my favorite movie of the series is the fourth one. So, do you guys have a favorite?
I think I really like the first one for being so iconic.
Yeah.
But I have to say, the newest one scared me. It was good. It gave me the heebie-jeebies, and I was not prepared.
I don't know if I can necessarily pick a favorite one, because I've only seen 1 through 4, and the fourth one I've only seen once in a while ago. But I actually really liked the third one, just because it went back to when they were kids, and you get the storyline of kind of how it started. Because I don't know if the newer ones go back even further of how it started, or if it's completely different and just ties in a little bit.
I was just going to say, I think that one does it the most. That one gives you the most story added to the original storyline.
But that's, like, something about this series I like, is that it's pretty hard to pick a favorite, because even though they do follow the same characters and you have this storyline throughout all of them, they're very different. Mm-hmm. It's different than a lot of, like, other series where I feel it's almost recycled, and it's the same thing every movie, and you don't really get a lot of difference. But I feel every Paranormal Activity movie is different enough from the last one to where you just keep getting these little details, and you're like, ooh, and then you're pinning them all together.
Yeah. Well, and then they make those connections that connects it back to that original storyline, but it's not constant. Like, Katie this, Katie that, Katie. You know, you're like, oh, that was Katie. So it keeps it cool in your mind.
Yeah.
I also kind of like them because, yes, they do tie in and stuff, but they also are kind of their own storylines that you could watch one and you've not seen the first two, or you could pick one out of the group and watch it as its own movie.
Yeah.
I think especially those later ones.
Yeah.
I think I could see the second one, I think you could still watch and appreciate, but I think you miss so much of it because you'd be like, who the heck's this lady? Mm-hmm. But those later ones, 100%. I think third through the end stands alone and wouldn't be that bad.
So, the Paranormal Activity film series still ranks very high in my favorite horror movies or scary movies. And I just love the way that they're filmed. I like the found footage type deal. And I feel like they picked great actors and actresses to portray all the characters. It's just definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah, well, one thing I think they did good, because if you notice, a lot of B movies try doing the video camera one because they think it's easy to do, but it's really not. You can make a crappy film in that way, but they do it because it's cheap. Mm-hmm. And stuff, and Paranormal Activity did so well, but I think how well they did it with doing that way of filming was just, it was really perfect.
There's a certain elegance you have to have with it that I think they captured.
Well, and it's impressive that the series went so long with still doing that style, because one of the best things about the hidden, like, lost footage is not knowing whether or not it's real. You know, like when Blair Witch Project came out, nobody knew those people. They didn't know those people. They thought it was real. They were like, oh my gosh, you were still like unsure because there wasn't a whole lot of advertisement. It was low budget. It wasn't big stars, so you didn't recognize names and faces. So that element of, did this really happen? Who are these people? What happened? That gets you. Mm-hmm. So when you're like 6 movies in and you can still do some hidden footage and keep people entertained, that's impressive.
Yeah. Well, and especially not to toot our own horns, but we're big scary movie and horror movie connoisseurs.
Yeah.
So the fact that the newer one scared you, I think that shows how good of movies they are.
Definitely.
They are good. I like them. Good selection.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for hanging out with us. Until next time.
Remember, you can find us on
our own website, Facebook,
Instagram,
YouTube, Twitter,
and even Pinterest.
Links are in the description.
As always,
stay weary,
stay leery,
and stay eerie.